Alex Answer here, June 2nd, 2016. And no commentary on society is complete without a focused discussion on the rise of the dark masculine. The expressions that we see of the dark masculine as opposed to the light masculine in our world today, and the repercussions basically for the world. When society goes in a certain direction, and people are hypnotized into supporting the dark masculine and suppressing the sacred masculine, this is the planet of cause and effect, folks. And if that is the reason why we are here, one of many, to understand that cause and effect in our own lives through trial and error, it is very critical that I take some additional time to share what it is that I've seen. You know, a lot of people misunderstand, by the way, what real martial arts is. There's a lot of things that have been passed off for martial arts, which is more of an expression of human cockfighting. There's a reason why certain martial arts have been kept secret for thousands of years. And there's been a concern on the part of the Chinese, for example, when Bruce Lee started teaching the West, because of the misuse of martial arts. And I think if Bruce Lee was alive today, and he saw all these Marines practicing MMA in a country that they are occupying, a country, though, despite their MMA training, that they're not going in and occupying with success with their bare hands, but in fact they're using drones on innocent men, women, and children in the country of Afghanistan and other countries. Yeah, big, strong, tough motherfuckers. You got to go after the Taliban and innocent men, women, and children using drones. And so I think that what we're looking at right now with this aggressive war, unjust war, racist war, millions dead, and what preceded it. The WWF programming that preceded it, the Chuck Norris, Delta Force propaganda that he himself has never taken accountability for that I've seen, although he's talking about chemtrails now. Oh, he's concerned about NAFTA. Oh, he's concerned about the, this, that, and the other over the last few years, never taking accountability like so many others in our country over the last few decades. And so there are many that have played their role as a Pied Piper in pop culture, Hollywood, movies, television, playing up the Persian Arab terrorist and bringing in the martial arts into it. Chuck Norris, of course, as well as many others, including Steven Seagal, have mixed this, martial arts interest in with fighting global terrorism. So there was a bridge they built. And martial arts is really about defending yourself, going to the origin and history of martial arts. The Indian monk that came to the Shaolin Temple and went into meditation for many, many years, came out of meditation and began teaching the monks that were falling asleep during their meditation how to stay awake and alert and protect their temple by practicing certain body movements. And I've read books where, they've suggested you train without anger. You train with a calm mind. And so I've also received a video from someone that developed an unhealthy obsession psychologically with both myself, my travels, and this channel in a way that men, heterosexual men, probably should not. I think that people should take what information relates to them and leave the rest. And this guy went on a whole diatribe about my martial arts scaring him and how he felt it was there to intimidate people and he just didn't understand. And it really sounded like a really bad Woody Allen impersonation. I just don't understand. You're lethal. Martial arts. It was like, and it's actually horrific that we live in a society where men do rely more on being cowardly, calling the police, or relying on a firearm over their own hands and faith in a creator. So I believe that I see a connection between faith in a creator, spirituality, and empty-hand martial arts, not relying on a firearm, having a sense of faith that you yourself are self-sufficient enough, really, on a self-defense level, to take care of yourself, to take care of your loved ones. This is how I live. This is how I live my life. This is why I don't drive around like the A-Team with a bazooka and a grenade launcher and other toys normally seen in a Hollywood movie. I literally am a man without fear who walks in faith. Okay? So there is a light side of the martial arts that a lot of men don't understand. That is based in nonviolence and through self-discipline and being able to perform certain things, not of violence, but maybe being able to perform a certain amount of kicks at a certain height per second or punches. That takes personal discipline. That discipline and enhanced energy that you're really bringing into your body and your energy centers, your hands are chakras, your feet are chakras, energy centers, that's also tied into psychic protection, your magnetic field. That protects you from interference in this realm. There's a connection that I'm stating between spirituality, psychic protection, martial arts, meditation, and other creative practices, personal life disciplines. So by becoming better at one thing and becoming centered at one thing and tap into that protective spirit. This is to protect. This is not to attack. That's why certain martial arts, traditional martial arts, would bring in, a glimmer of spirituality with maybe a few minutes of meditation before class, where there might be some discussion about it only being for defense, and there was some good stuff that came out of the 1970s and 1980s and 1990s in American martial arts schools, where there were values placed on those things. Society has changed. Martial arts has changed. Things like the MMA, and there's a lot of soldiers in MMA. There's no morality to that. It's not a martial arts based on respect. It's about brutality. It's about attacking. It's about beating your opponent into submission. It is what some people think is an art. It's really human cockfighting that has a number of homoerotic, sexual, innuendo positions. Normally in street fights you don't see that. People do go to the ground and they fight and somebody wins. They don't Gracie style hump for 15 to 20 minutes. And the MMA thing was, the UFC rather, was there to promote the Gracie school for a long time, being organized by the Gracies to begin with. I knew something at a young age that something was wrong with the type of martial arts, the hump martial arts, hump. I'm sorry, but real fighting doesn't look like that. And then you look at the connection between sodomy, rape, including rape of prisoners in Afghanistan that U.S. soldiers have participated in, including rape of the women. Of course, what they want you to focus on are the mullahs that have the child sex prostitutes that the Marines can't do anything about. Well, there's a reason why those radical extremists and some of those groups have been left alone, and it's the funding. This video isn't about that, but there's a reason why radical Islam has a foothold in Afghanistan, Iraq, and other countries, and it's the funding. And much of this is admitted, although they don't admit what's going on now. You got to wait a few years for that to come out. Yeah. In some cases, they just flat out admit it. And in some cases, the ISIS groups being tied in with other groups that are well known to be tied into the CIA, Saudi Arabia, or the Mossad, or British intelligence, or other groups. So it's obvious that they funded the enemy, and this dark masculine is instead of men actually shine the light on the issues that are affecting all men, and being a man enough to talk about issues happening to people, other humans, other than what you perceive to be of your own race. That's not very strong or tough to act like you're some sort of a gangbanger, and this is about white America versus the rest of the world, and to think that premeditative hit first, kill first, ask questions later, to think that doesn't actually bring bad karma is just an act of stupidity. The wise martial artist on the spiritual path understands you just can't walk around assaulting people, punching people in the face, so you feel good about your own ego, and not realize that at some point you're going to meet someone bigger, badder, who's going to fuck you up. Now, I believe these things, and I've always believed these things, and I've never gone out looking to hurt other people, and I don't train with a sense of fury and anger. It's an art form. So when I see people like that, assume that the act of martial arts practice is an act of being boastful or aggressive, those people remind me of my psychotic father, who is the epitome of masculine weakness, who has sold out to the system in his mind, body, and spirit. It's the reason why we've divorced each other well over a decade ago, and even before 9/11 for that matter. I could see how he tried to infect me with his insanity and how I rebelled against his archonic ways. Never forget him saying, "Oh, you You think you could be John Rambo? Takes real men to get a fucking master's degree and blah, blah, blah. And all I'm doing is just fucking working out on the heavy bag. It's like, dude, do you realize how insane you're acting? At the same time, on the other hand, I've seen how a person that I learned how to hit from, a person that was one of my first real trainers and also friend, his morality and my morality are not one and the same. And I've had to self-teach myself, take myself further with my own training, self-taught, self-directed, because some of the stuff is very familiar to me. Whereas he left me at a certain level with a few techniques, and I filled in the rest for myself. But he himself is not one that I would consider to be someone that is of necessarily the light masculine, that at times was the dark masculine, who did not understand the concept of karma, did not understand that when you hurt the weak, when you smash someone's head in, that at some point that energy follows you. Then there's those that believe that, but they won't admit that, so they live their lives in fear. Not confidence in themselves in the universe, they live their lives in fear when society gets nasty and they get older because of the shit that they did. They live in fear. Now the psychobabble that's affected many men, already affected by the dark masculine, is because a lot of men are afraid of Middle Eastern people that live in this country because of the shit that has been done. They're afraid, well, at some point there's got to be some blowback. So they live in fear of people that look different. They live in fear because of the stuff that they've been told about ISIS and how ISIS came about to be as a response of the U.S. presence. They don't know ISIS is really under control of the same forces that sent them into war. They don't really internalize that. They don't get that. All they understand and all they believe in their lower intuitive dark masculine mentality is blowback may be coming. Even Ron Paul said blowback 1,000 times in response to 9/11 instead of telling the real truth about 9/11. Blowback, 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 blowback. So now they're waiting for the ultimate blowbacks of blowbacks of blowbacks. All types of mini suitcase blowbacks and human bomb suicide blowbacks. They're in a state of psychosis. And again, there's a connection between the dark feminine and the dark masculine and having no psychic capability on a deeper level or intuition, being able to see the truth, reality as it is. Because they're under mind control, because they're under a spell. And the more evil you do, the more wicked you do and bring into your field, the more you become under their control. The control of the dark grid. You don't have to be watching television to be under control of the dark grid. You don't have to have the radio on. You don't have to have the internet on or be on Facebook or YouTube. It helps. But the dark grid operates on a whole different reality than the grid that you might be thinking of. So, we are playing out the consequences of certain things. And certain things are in motion. A real collective shift in consciousness would show a restoration of the divine feminine and masculine. It would show a restoration of the divine feminine. We would see widespread female either protest or anger or discontent with the dark masculine. We know that that is not the case. We know that there are more women in support of men that are murdering other men, women, and children overseas than women in the society. They're supporting men doing the right thing. This is undisputable. This is what is happening right now. So the consequences of this, I talked about this before. When China and Russia occupy the United States, they're going to take things out on the American women. Okay, and white slavery is going to return. And the west coast of the United States, I believe, could be one of the least safest places in all the planet, at least the country. And I've been warning people, at least since 2007 or 8, of the social consequences, physical safety consequences, situation where we are occupied. And this is aided by the fact that good men are leaving society that's already rejected them and pushed them out, meaning that a lot of the people that are left in cities, male and female, are pushovers. They're not strong men or women. They're weak people that will allow themselves, that will allow others to be raped, beaten, and enslaved. They will act in a herd mentality, animalistic. They may act or believe that they're conservative or progressive or whatever fucking nice word packaging they want to put on this bullshit. But in the end, you're dealing with herd animal behavior. You've already seen these humans keep their mouths shut about millions dead in the Middle East. This is already a bad sign. See, because the future is here. You watch movies like The Terminator and you think about a futuristic world where humans are being hunted by robots and you act like that's the fucking future. That's the Afghan nightmare. What don't some of you understand about the Afghan nightmare? What do some of you don't understand about off-gridders in Afghanistan that are living outside the Islamic Empire? They're living outside the control of the Taliban, innocent villagers that have an ancestry that goes back thousands of years, like the Pashtuns and others, the real natives of the Afghan country, of Afghanistan. Of course, Afghanistan as a nation is only several hundred years old. It goes back to the time of George Washington, actually, when it was being founded by a ruler to help these different tribes, which he united through force, defend themselves against the British. Okay. So I think Afghanistan is one of the perfect examples for us to look at a group of people that have been victimized, terrorized, literally by terrorists, funded with U.S. arms and money from Saudi Arabia and other countries, and innocent people in Afghanistan that had nothing to do with 9/11 being mowed down by drones by the dark masculine. The dark masculine, phony tough guy warrior, dark martial arts, kill, attack, destroy, and the women that love them, the mothers that co-sign their behavior and don't have an intuition come in to actually show them what happened over there, to show them the torture chambers where the women have been stripped naked and gang raped by white American U.S. soldiers serving in Iraq and Afghanistan. Same soldiers that were pumped up full of steroids by their commanders and told to say nothing about it. So for weeks, they want to kill and rape everything in sight. And there are people, there were soldiers that have served over there that have come back and told stories about this, about being told to go to a certain room and to not ask questions about whatever shots they were getting that made them feel very aggressive and sexual afterwards. So, folks, they literally have been making monsters out of Americans in Afghanistan since all this began. And they are literally funding aspects of radical Islam. There's a reason why Taliban attacks keep occurring every time they talk about U.S. troops withdrawing. It's meant there to maintain public support for this never-ending occupation of Afghanistan. It's a major trade route. Many superpowers have tried to control this nation for a long time. It's about control. It's about power. I'll talk more about this in the history of Afghanistan as I re-educate myself and start exploring it more and more, although it's a painful place to look at. A lot of people do not want to realize and face the fact that the robot age is here. And DARPA and the running dogs and the attack drones and the predators and the drones that never have to come down ever for power because they're solar powered. And they keep killing and killing and killing and killing, and they are protecting people from the truth. Not protecting them, they are coveting the truth, they are hiding the truth, but yet all of this is out there. All of this is out there. This has been occurring, that these people are dead, that the Pentagon no longer counts the dead, and yet we still are a society where they will read the death toll of the foreign invaders first, the American death toll, the NATO death toll. They will read that first before they even touch, if they even touch, how many Afghans, Iraqis, or others have died. It is because these people have been brought down in the public eye, collectively worldwide, as subhumans. They were blamed for 9/11. The people believe that everyone is to blame for 9/11 in those countries. They believe the lies of their own government, country, and politicians like Trump and others, that these wars are justified, that there are large-scale numbers of immigrants that want to come into this country and chop your head off and rape your daughter. And the worst of the worst, this has contaminated human consciousness. So this is the age of the rise of the dark masculine. The sacred masculine is there, but because many of us have been very affected by the society and propaganda, cooperation amongst those on the lighter masculine path has not come to our society yet. You have a lot of lone warriors and lone wolves doing good work on their own, but we are not organized like the armed forces. We are not organized like a college or a think tank. The alternative media and many members of the alternative media are very selfish and are promoting New World Order talking points about a large amount of Middle Eastern immigrants wanting to come here to do harm to you. They do not realize that they are cannon fodder for this manufactured race war ideology. They do not realize they are actually serving the New World Order at the highest levels. So the sacred masculine protector right now has to survive the elements, has to survive, has to be a spiritual survivalist. The light masculine warrior, the path of the peaceful warrior, the path of the sacred masculine has to continue to walk on and speak on, despite how the men and women treat him. In some cases, the sacred masculine has to disguise himself when in this zombie apocalypse society in order to preserve themselves so they can go on to speak another day. And that is also very, very important. We're living in a world now to where if the dark feminine wanted to shift to the lighter feminine and actually support the men doing the right thing and to cease and desist from giving attention and love, and if she was not in a position to be attracted to a mass murder, the world would not be in the position that it's in. Female sexuality would have to shift. You can't force female sexuality to have to shift. The female sexuality would want to shift on her own. She would find an inability to be attracted to a man who may have committed gang rape in the Middle East, or may have turned his eye against it, or may have allowed it to take place. And there's a movie called Casualties of War, starring Sean Penn and Michael Fox, and I'm going to refer you to that movie now. Notice you won't see movies like that, depicting real things like that happening in Afghanistan and Iraq. You try to watch a documentary on Iraq or Afghanistan, and it is absolute propaganda. And I've been looking for documentaries because I'm starting to look for the deeper history of these regions and these outside forces from Europe. Some people talk about the Vatican's influence over Islam. There are these outside forces that for a long time have been dabbling in the affairs of the Middle East to redirect it. And there's also forces of evil from within the Middle East that Middle Eastern people and Muslims have not called out because of their own religious faith, or because of their own personal dogma, including nationalism and other things. So as I grow older in this lifetime, I'm going to continue to bring up certain things, little dots in history. I'll talk about the history of Afghanistan, the various groups that try to go in there and control things, and I'll also dig up some history on groups within Afghanistan, including my ancestor, that attempted to live off the grid, outside of the fundamentalist Islamic society, that at times found themselves targeted. At times they had to flee. And there were even Chinese living in Afghanistan. There still are. Afghanistan was known for being an ethnic hub, if you will. Different tribes and different groups and different belief systems. At one time you had a Buddhist society in Afghanistan. A beautiful country, by the way, especially without all the destruction. And so I think the greater question is, beyond the name Afghanistan and Iraq and things like this, we find names like Babylon and stories of Mesopotamia. And we find ourselves fascinated with this place in the world that's seen so much violence. And for whatever reason, and I think this is a good place to close, in this manufactured war, in this world where we almost see the hidden controllers attempt to conjure demons, we see their mass sacrifices, we see their mass rapes, we've seen what they've done to this society. To take the dark masculine to the next level and bring in the demonic possession over some of those soldiers, they have sent them to this ancient world of Babylon that they have been reawakening Shekinah with bombs, destruction, Shekinah being a certain deity, goddess deity from the past. Clyde Lewis and others have speculated by bringing the shock and awe, and play on words to Shekinah, they're almost trying to activate or awaken a deity in a Beetlejuice, almost kind of a way. You have men that have come back and have done very destructive things that have gone on to go suicide by cop, to beat their wife. In some cases, submarines have come back to attack innocent people, innocent Middle Eastern immigrants. In some cases, you have people programmed by the television alone. And that highlights the amount of negativity coming out of the TV and the news media and the politicians. And I would even say people like Alex Jones now, as opposed to the old Alex Jones who would speak more truth. So evil has definitely awoken. It's walking with the race war cloak. It is confusing Americans. It is directing men away from the protective, masculine aspects. And our society is being taught to create very negative karma for itself for the future of women's safety when China and Russia are occupying. All this will be controlled by the same forces that sent us to war. The same evil sore on hand that is leading Americans to destruction, that has led Western forces into the Middle Eastern countries. Same force of evil will lead the armies of death into the United States. It will bring down the defenses of the United States. We are playing out right now, and we are in between realities here in this year of 2016. And it's more obvious than ever, as I thought it would be, that by this point in time, most of the world, or anyone paying attention, would realize that at some point the United States and Russia, as well as China, U.S. versus China, are planning to go to war. You can look at the South China Sea, you can look at what's happening in the Black Sea and the Baltics. You can look at what's happening in the Arctic. You can look at the missile defense system in Poland. And you can look at all of these headlines coming out that China and Russia are going to retaliate at some point against what the United States is doing. And the fact of the matter is, they have turned Americans away from goodness. And I'm not saying there was a golden age of goodness, but they've turned people away from goodness, and they've directed people towards darkness, away from the divine protective spirit, masculine, real purpose of the martial arts, to defend, and only use this to defend. And they have directed men and women to support those men towards preemptive attacks, nuclear attacks. Just because you're not seeing the karmic blowback right away doesn't mean there isn't going to be any. And so if you're in America now, you're in a cult right now. You're on a sinking ship, many European, Western nations as well. And there will even be great karma and evil brought to Russia and China when they convince the Russians and Chinese to do horrible things to the American people. They also will fall. This is a global system. This isn't just about America. But America is going to be dead center for a number of major events in the years to come. What you've been seeing is the co-opting of people's souls and spirits towards evil. Because when you're encouraged to do evil to others, you allow evil to happen to you. So the American nightmare that's about to take place is only allowed to take place and will take place because of all the actions that have led up to this point so far. All of the people that continue to support the demonization and murder of people all over the world that did nothing to them on 9/11 just because they're told to by this machine, and all the women that love them. Alex Answer here, sign off, June 2nd, 2016.